So these are the older 23 calves. These are the first ones that we had at the start of the winter. They're growing really well now. We've recently, in the last week, taken them off ad-lib beef nuts and onto being fed twice a day. They get 4 buckets in the morning and 3 buckets in the evening, which works out about £6 each a day. They'll grow really well on that, and also for the first time we've got both lots of calves on ad-lib silage. We only do this after a certain age, sort of after 10 weeks old, more around sort of 12 weeks old with these, just to make sure that their rumen's working well. They will have been on ad-lib straw for those 10 weeks. The straw is pretty vital to their growth, as it scratches the inside of the gut and causes sort of mucus inside, which breaks the food down, which means they digest their food a lot better, so they're getting more benefit from the feed. If you feed hay, a common thing with feeding hay is it will ball up inside their stomachs, causing them to look pot-bellied. Some people think that they're doing well on it because they've sort of got these big round bellies, whereas in fact it is just the hay being so fine as balled up inside of them, and they're not actually not digesting it properly. They'll still eat a bit of straw from their bedding every day, but both lots of calves have now got a round feeder in there, so they can eat as much as they like. In fact, that bale only went in a few days ago and there isn't a lot of it left at all, and they are growing really well on it. They'll go out in a couple of months. It's now March, so sort of April, May time, they'll go out for the summer. We have 3 fields that are close to the yard here, and they'll go out in 2 groups there. The rest of the calves are still in the calves house, which is in there. They're all doing really well. They're on ad-lib silage now as well, and both lots have 24-hour access to their yards, so they can come in and out as they please. Automatic drinker. It's a lot less work now this time of year. As you can see, a few of them have got ringworm. We leave it, don't really get much trouble with it. Even the vet said if it's not bothering them, they'll get rid of it on their own within sort of 2 to 4 months, and then they build up their own immunity to it and they don't get it again then. Not every calf will get ringworm. We've got quite a few that don't have ringworm, but we've never had a bullock with ringworm because we just let them sort of develop their own immunity to that. Picasso here, who's one of the tamest, actually had ringworm over his face, and it's completely healed up now. His hair's all grown back. Sunlight is very good for ringworm as well. We did have a bullock last year that had ringworm on his eyelid, which actually split and did get infected, so he just had a 3-day course of penicillin and he was absolutely fine. Healed up within a few days, and then the ringworm just sort of went on its own. So these are just finishing off their breakfast now. Say all of them are growing really well. There were 25 in this group, but we moved 2 back into the calves house before we took them off ad-lib feeding, just to keep them on ad-lib a little bit longer. One of them in particular, Sick Boy, I've talked about him before. He had a bit of a rough start, so we just want to sort of bring him up to where he should be. So another couple of weeks on ad-lib. He'll be absolutely fine. He's happy next door. He knows them anyway, so we've taken him and his mate next door. This is Lovey, just for a couple more weeks to build him up. I'd say they're growing really well. These are my yearlings. These were the calves in the videos last year. You might recognise some of them if you've watched the older videos from last year. They are humongous. I've never had yearlings this big before. Well, they're around sort of 14 months old average. The younger ones, which are about a month or 2 younger, are down in that pen. These are the older ones, as Michael. They are huge. Last year was the first year we started giving the calves a little bit of silage. These didn't have ad-lib silage, but we were giving them quite a lot sort of towards the end. We'd take it in a wheelbarrow into the pen, and they just did so well on it, because by that point their rumens were working well. They'd had the ad-lib straw, their guts were all working well. They were getting all the sort of benefit from the silage, and have just grown amazingly well. There's Helen. Helen actually had brain damage from dehorning, which is an extremely rare side effect. They think that his skull was probably slightly thinner than normal. It's very common in goats because they do have thinner skulls, and the heat from the burner, even though only on for a few seconds, caused his brain to swell. He was extremely ill. He was dying. When we found him, he was throwing himself up the walls. He couldn't see, he couldn't eat, he had no coordination, his head had swelled up. Wouldn't eat or drink. My partner actually had to drag him out and put him in a stable because we couldn't keep him in a pen because he was just throwing himself around. So we gave him some antibiotics and some Metacam, because at the time we didn't actually know what had happened. We came back home in the evening and found him, he'd actually thrown himself out of the pen. But after about 5 days, we'd actually made the decision to have him put to sleep because he just wasn't improving, and it wasn't really fair on him either. And literally the next day, he started drinking some milk, and very slowly, it did take weeks and weeks, started to come round, and now he is huge. He's one of the biggest at the South Devons. Humongous. He's got slightly droopy ears, which is the only sort of physical problem he has. His eyesight's absolutely fine now. He's a sweet thing. Didn't want to know me for months, which you wouldn't if somebody was sticking needles in you every day. But now he's absolutely fine. I say, apart from his slightly droopy ears and the fact he is a boy called Helen, he's absolutely fine and doing amazing. He has grown so well. The one on the end here, well, jokingly, her name is actually vegan. She was allergic to milk. Of all things, the milk nearly killed her. As soon as we stopped the milk, if she had 2 mouthfuls of milk, she would blow up like a balloon. Extremely painful for her. So we stopped the milk for a couple of days and just gave her water, put her back on milk, and exactly the same thing happened again. So we actually stopped her milk altogether, and she's been absolutely fine since, growing really, really well. Honeybun, here, he had a chronic foot problem. We had 2 different vets come and look at his feet, advised 2 different things. This went on for months and nothing worked. He had so many antibiotics. The vet recommended different antibiotics, different sprays, soak in his feet, poultice in his feet. We had to bring him in twice because he was so lame in the field he couldn't even lift his leg up. It was horrible seeing him in pain that badly. So we actually got a cattle person in who deals with cattle's feet, and he diagnosed it as contact dermatitis, which is different and usually wrongly diagnosed as digital dermatitis, which it wasn't. So we did the treatment for the contact dermatitis, which was the blue antibiotic spray, twice a day for 10 days, and that was 7 months ago, and he's not had a problem since. Incredible, really, to think how long he had this problem, and it's healed up, and he's had no, even with, the yard is a bit mucky, and this time of year the pens are quite mucky. They're due to be going out this next month, so they do get a bit mucky this time of year. They're in for a very long time, over the winter, 6 months. The yard does get scraped up every day normally by my partner, but he's actually working on his lorry today, so the yard is a bit mucky there, but he likes to keep it as clean as possible. I say these are only getting fed about £1.5 each a day. We feed all year round here, so they're only on a very little amount of corn every day, and ad-lib silage, and as you can see they are huge. We have a mix of heifers and steers, all mixed in together. All the steers have, well, obviously they're steers, they've been castrated, so there's no worry with the heifers. Everybody's doing really, I'm so happy with them. Saying they just get fed once a day in the morning, and then they get ad lib silage. We've had amazing silage this year, I suppose because we had such a beautiful summer, and they can't get enough of it. They'll eat 3 bales between them in a few days. Absolutely love it. We had a couple of bales they weren't that keen on, so we just chucked that in for bedding, because luckily we have got quite a big couple stacks left, and only sort of a month's 6 weeks left before they go out for the summer. These will get sold early October as stores, although it's not going to take much to finish these at all. They'll get fed just a very little amount during the summer. It's more so just to keep them. They are extremely friendly. I hand rear them all, and it just gets them used to that routine. And also, if we need to bring them in, which we do frequently for tests or treatment, I've just got to shake a bag out of my truck window, and they'll follow me through all the fields back down to the yard and into the shed. It just keeps them quiet and calm. Last year, the ones that we sold as stores at market, all of them made top price in the weeks that we sold, and they had very little beef nuts during the summer. Very little. We were very lucky to have such a lot of grass. After it being so dry in June and actually having no grass at all, July, August and September we had so much grass. They just did absolutely amazing. We've got one that's got rigs there on his neck. Just keeping an eye on that. Normally they drop off on their own, but he's got quite a big cluster there, so we'll just make sure that they do sort of dry up and drop off on their own. It's quite a common thing, they get sort of warty growths. So yeah, so far so good. We've had a really good winter so far. Everyone's here that should be here. So yeah, I'll leave them for their breakfast now.